Pop in, say hi. If you've never come to one of my lives before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And this is my Sunday night show. I call it Chatters Live because it is a conversation. It is a gathering of sorts. And it's the start of a hard week sometimes. Sometimes it's the end of a hard week. And, we find resolve sometimes in that company that is non expectant of us. You know what I mean? Like, we're not expected in anything we do. It's just popping in, hanging out with us, sharing with some awesome people, some awesome energy, big hearts. They've been with me for a decade now, you guys, some of these amazing people. And they chat more than I do. So welcome, welcome. If you want to pop in and say hi, come on in, say hi. This is Owen, one of my main moderators here on the channel. He'll kick your butt. I'm teasing. He's an absolute sweetheart. But he will. He'll take care of me. And that's why it makes it so that I can come in and just be myself. Knowing that, no matter what, everything is going to be okay with that mix. And I hope it's a mix because it takes all kinds to make the world 100%. Even for myself, I have I have an abundance. I have an appetizer platter of psychologists and philosophers and professors and oh my goodness, like even people who are well thought after in taking care of our spiritual and religious ideas, like I'm learning from rabbis. I love the rabbis. I think they have an amazing sense of humor. There is a comfort, right, that we all look for when we hang out with people. And we kind of get a feeling who we'll rub with sometimes without even knowing anything. They're coming down the sidewalk and already we feel resonance with them. For myself, I believe that these are people that we've walked paths with somewheres in the past, right? And maybe not for lifetimes after lifetimes, but we did find that momentary comfort. And when we bump into each other, and I believe it's how it is with all of us. I can't see that it's any other way. It's so amazing that, our group specifically, if you really got to know them and hang out with them for as long as I have, you get to recognize the little nuances of the crew that like to hang out with Cindy. And you can be introduced in the moment to caregivers. Caregivers, I believe, get an automatic in. They get that ticket to the next stage in evolution because they give so much of themselves and so much of their own lives, right? That God just says, like, there's nothing that these people could do that could dissolve in any way all the good, right? They have given back to the world. So I notice I have a lot of caregivers that hang out with me, whether they caregive in their own families or they caregive as a job, right? Sometimes we caregive. I wasn't going to talk about this. I guess it's just a small mention, but it's something to recognize, because it's a trap that I fell into, right? And it is in that people pleasing, right? When you stumble over yourself, right, you avoid conflict, you make sure that everybody's okay. That's a form of caregiving too, but it's also something, as of recently, I'm learning to do it by choice and not by necessity, right? When you have to caregive out of necessity, people can become bitter in that, right? Because nobody deserves or wants to be made to do something that they really don't want to do, but because they will be perceived a certain way, or because their heart is just not in it, because maybe they had dreams. It's like that movie A Wonderful Life. It's my sister's favorite Christmas movie. And where all he wanted to do was to go off and travel the world, and then he met the love of his life, and then his town needed him, his community needed him. I used to look at my sister that way. She doesn't recognize all the amazing that she brings to the table. My sister is also stuck in the middle. She was brought up in the two extremes just as much. But I am my father's daughter, and my sister is my mother's daughter. And again, it's not as extreme, right? Because she still has part of those essences of my father, just like I have essences of my mother. But it's it's that loyalty, it's that we can't help. Like I said, when I came in, we can't help what we're attracted to, right? We can't help what we are drawn, what makes us feel safe, what might makes us feel like we're at home, right? That everything is good. And so, when I see my sister and see that all the things, right, despite being headstrong, despite having narcissistic tendencies, controlling tendencies. And there's nothing wrong with being controlling if we understand that we can only control our own spheres, our own actions, our own thoughts, our own voice, right? Our own presence. But she doesn't recognize how much of my father she actually got. She just didn't get his congenital heart failure, right? She got his kindnesses and his consideration and her care for others. But having those tendencies, that care can sometimes turn into control, right? And that's a hard one to let go of. And she's got a big lesson in the past half a dozen years. As much as I've been in it, she's been getting her own lessons too, right? And to see her struggle in that. But I know if she can survive a crash like that, oh my goodness, you guys look out when my sister comes in. She is going to be. I told her, my sister Tracy, she is a queen. She is. But there are certain directions that, were being moved to have burnt out of us. And coming from a dynamic family, grateful that I knew that it had to be done, that I had an opportunity to do that. But you can't tell my sister nothing. And no work has been done in that. But, you know, all those kindnesses, all that caring, right? Concern and love is still concern and love, and it's caregiving, and it's caregiving. And I would never want her to think that she didn't bring to the table, or even worse, that what she brought to the table didn't matter, because it certainly did matter. And even if she doesn't see it now, eventually it's going to serve her so well. But she is a no guff kind of girl, you guys. You ever get a chance, right, to meet my sister Tracy? And I have no idea why she's never made it in to my content, why she's right. She's not opposed to it, I don't think, in any way, and I don't think she would show herself badly, right? And I don't think at the same time, right? So there's a reason in that, but I just have to trust, right, that when it's meant to happen, that you guys will be absolutely blown away, right? You'll be wearing t-shirts that say Tracy for president. I tell you, I come from a dynamic family of caregivers, even in our professions and stuff. My mother worked housekeeping in hospitals her entire life. She absolutely just loved it, and she cleaned rooms, and she watched over the maternity wards, and she really really loved her job, and it was her job, but she loved it. And not only that, she was serving in that, and in serving in that, oh boy, did she get a pension at the end. She was clearing like $4,000 a month in her hospital pension and her old age pensions. She did really 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 well for herself. I right. That won't be the case for me as it stands in this moment. Doesn't mean that in a blink of an eye, in that wiggle of the nose, that it wouldn't change, right? But in the moment, it is what it is, and I accept that. I'm creating the best life for myself as I possibly can, in the creation of the best human being I can, right? Okay, who's here? Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Oh, Kathy's here too. Hello, Kathy. I hope everybody's having an amazing week. Let me know what the weather is like. I heard Manitoba is going to have some really mild weather until the end of January. It's supposed to be pretty mild. We're not supposed to have a lot of really cold temperatures, but it still is cold out there. I'm still wearing my snow pants. I was out there yesterday, and oh my goodness, I felt like I was overdressing, but I think I just had my cowl on wrong. I think maybe I could have managed with just without my cowl. But it's winter. I don't want to get sick at all. My sister Alice, I just messaged her this afternoon, and she's been sick all week, right? And I haven't heard back. I try to get my messaging in my busyness of my own life. And it's funny because my sisters at times in my life have been my life, and that I've got to take that as a good sign that I'm finding my own independence, right? Yeah, that's what I heard too, Owen. I know you guys get your weather right after us. You get kind of similar weather, but you get it like a day and a half after we do. It's like here in Winnipeg. I'm not a big fan of trusting the Weather Channel because they change constantly, the weather. Mother Nature's never been able to be controlled, right? It's amazing in this day and age. We can give little hints of possibilities, but we can't determine that this is coming, but we're getting better in the storms. Like the past couple of winter storms and stuff did hit, like they said they were going to hit, but sometimes in those particulars, right, Weather Channel doesn't always get it right. But I found for myself that if I look at the weather in Edmonton, because in the wintertime we have the, what do they call it? It comes from the north. It's a wind stream that comes, and we're right at the bottom of the teacup, right? In that circulation. And so it makes it so whatever weather Edmonton has, we get that weather in 16 hours if the winds stay the same. And it's pretty accurate, right? It's pretty accurate. I don't know how many other people have noticed that, but I have noticed it, and following Edmonton's weather gives me a pretty good idea of what's going on, especially if I want to go camping, or I've got plans for the weekend and stuff. So then that way I can make sure excuse me, that I can make sure that I, for my best of my ability, that I am prepared for whatever weather stream is going to be going on. Yeah, it's interesting that we are so technically and digitally inclined, and yet we do not have good, right? We're learning about, where the tsunamis are going to hit. This is amazing in technology. We're learning that. The earthquakes, right? We're getting better at predicting the earthquakes. Look what happened at Mount St. Helens, how many lives were saved. And that was in the late 80s. I remember that because I lived in Vancouver at the time. It was right before we moved to Manitoba, and oh my goodness, you couldn't even breathe. It was like constant fog all the time. Okay, I'm yabbering. Somebody else bring up a topic of conversation tonight, right? That weather is something that we haven't controlled. That doesn't mean that we will never get to that point. I think at some point we will have to, because we'll have to determine ways, of being able to capture moisture, because we are going into a dry spell as a planet, and right. I'm Right, I'm not going to say I'm grateful I live by the Great Lakes, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to survive if everybody in North America is heading towards, right, the Great Lakes just so that they have water, but the crops are going to be gone, and we're going to have to look for creative ways to find ways to exist, to have crops, to keep the world going, so that because eventually we won't be in global warming, right? But it'll take millions of years to, or hundreds of thousands of years at the very least, to come out of it again. And we have survived, right? We have survived the ice age, but I'm not sure if we've survived global warming yet. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to assume that we can survive. Maybe at that time we will be able to have cities in the bottom of the ocean. That would be pretty cool, even though the surface of the earth was hot, that we were able to be under the water and find ways to generate oxygen. We have to find ways to adapt to this. Like right now, there's a one of the channels that I follow. He's fairly new, about a month. He's a desert planter. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that. He's out in the Texas desert right now, in the rural desert where there's no water. It's just sand, and what do you call it? Sand dunes, right? That's all that there is. And he's looking for ways to bring plants and life back to the desert. You heard about the beavers, right? Not the beavers in the desert, and them being able to dam off creeks and stuff and to tier water into the desert. Well, this gentleman, he's doing it with plants. He's trying to plant trees. He's providing shade. He's digging bowls. He's using old tires. He's what are all the things he's doing? Dust catchers, because dust is a big problem in getting these plants to start. But they say if you can get the plants to start, right? Then when the floods come in, because the deserts do flood, there's a flooding season, but the water doesn't stay in the ground. It just streams right off, right? Because it's just sand. So the plants will help to keep the moisture in the ground, and then maybe, right, they'll be able to be um, life and death. So there's decay in order to bring an organic surface to the ground. And once that's there, right? I mean, if in Egypt it was once an oasis, right? That was man generated, wasn't it? Las Vegas is man generated, right? That we can create and have, and that might be a good source to look for ideas in what they're doing in cities like Las Vegas and Dubai and stuff. I would suspect that we're going to be under the ground, we're going to be in caves, or we're going to be in the bottom of the ocean or in the middle of the mountains, right? Inside the mountains is a good place, I would think, to be while it getting really, really hot, as long as you're not in a volcano, right? Who knows how long, right? But even if we can keep some small groups of humans, it's kind of depressing. Even if we're looking at these, right? It's just to have that information of what to do if these things happen, right? And the scenarios, and if we have those scenarios, then maybe in the moment we could have a quick decision when we have to make those decisions, right? And be able to make better decisions. Had a little headway, right, in Mount St. Helens, and they saved lives every time one of these big volcanoes go. They'll move a village like they did up in Iceland, or they'll evacuate and get everybody up onto the high hills if the tsunamis are coming, right? There's lots of things that we can do if we have a little bit of hindsight. But I think, right, we're might even end up with a meteor hitting and going back into an ice age, right? It's happened before where we were in global warming, and in that set of global warming, we got hit by a meteor and we went back into an ice age temporarily. And I think that just might have, right, brought us back into global warming, put us back to the beginning again, and now we're moving back into it again. It's interesting stuff, you guys. I like this kind of stuff. I find it interesting. I wish somebody I could find people that are like experts in these fields and say, "Hey, let's go for coffee." I'm trying to get more fluids into me, you guys. Uh, I always know when I'm not drinking enough fluids because I get Charlie horses. And I haven't had Charlie horses all summer. This was the first week since probably, wow, when I quit my job. So it's been quite a while now since I've had any Charlie horses, but I've been having a couple of Charlie horses a couple of times this week. And they are not fun. I don't know if anybody else struggles with Charlie horses. I drink a lot of fluid, but my fluids are a lot of caffeine. I'm always drinking fluids, right? I'm always drinking tea. As of lately, I'm alternating them. So one coffee, one tea, one coffee. So sometimes I'm coming in with my tea. Tonight it's coffee. So before I go to bed tonight, because this one I can see is just barely room temperature, right? So before I go to bed tonight, I'll make myself a cup of tea. So some good news for me. I got my desktop back up and running. It's a pirated window. I wasn't happy with that. I didn't know it until I got home with it. But I think Google might be pretty content with that because it gets full control over my computer. And which is good for me too because right, it confuses me the two between Google and my Windows, right? Because a lot of times you don't know who the program belongs to, if it belongs to Windows or if it belongs to Google. I'm sure you can always pull in the settings, right? And find out. But sometimes we're so quick to get on to the next thing, we don't really pay attention to that. And then we combine that we don't have the securities that we want, and we're probably gonna get some pop-up advertising and stuff. And so I really like it being inside my Google account. And because I'm just using the computer for right, because I have this great big monitor here, right? And I don't like to take my lessons. It's right, my laptop is like watching content on my phone. That's not good for my eyes. I'm 64 years old. I don't want to do that, and I don't find it enjoying, right? And because I take what I'm doing really serious, it's important for me to be comfortable and to be able to absorb the way I want to. And it's not perfect, you guys, right? It's an old Windows, it's a Windows 10. I couldn't find in the price range that I wanted to pay for a Windows 11. So, right, it can wait. The idea is to get back up and running because my computer had no RAM on it at all. Like we're not even talking 1 GB left. There was nothing left. There was a few MBs left, and oh my goodness, it wouldn't take my speakers. But talking about the speakers, the one thing I don't appreciate, it's got good specs. I'm happy for that, and even though it's an older computer, it runs pretty good, and but it won't let me because it's a pirated Windows program. It won't let me use my speakers. Let me use my mouse and my keyboard. I don't understand that, but it won't let me use my speakers. So yeah. So I don't like the sound because the sound is actually coming from the computer. So I have to figure something out. Maybe you can just do Wi-Fi, get a little pair of Wi-Fi speakers. But these are Bose speakers, computer speakers that I had. Right? It was like sitting here, Dolby sound. I guess I could use my headphones, but use your headphones for a while and your ears hurt and everything, right? But I tell you, it's really nice to move into the content really fast, not dealing with the sound going or the speed of the content or the whole channel crashing on me, and then me having to flip over into working on the laptop, and then I sit there and I go, "Oh, this sucks." And then you worry, how do you get a new computer? Because computers are not cheap unless you're Cindy and you can find a good deal. I got a good deal. Should have gotten a good deal, right? And maybe I can activate it because I found a sticker on the back of the computer, and I think it's actually the key. So I think if I try to sign back into my Windows, it will let me. but I appreciate that I don't have to use my Windows. Um, so I might not. I just might use it for that because I do all my work on my laptop anyway, right? Because it's the one with all the mega storage and everything. But but I like the big monitors, so when I'm taking in my lessons or having conversations, right, or sitting in on conversations, and when I'm going into um the web and I'm actually, looking at documents and articles and stuff, I want to be able to have that nice big font and everything and be comfortable with that. My laptop is amazing, don't get me wrong. I'm really grateful for it, right? That was a huge one. And it was a really good deal. I got like a $5,000 laptop for like $1,000. So I'm pretty grateful that I managed. But that was on me too. I did that research. I figured out what I needed and I had those specs and I went searching for the best deal I could. And sometimes you take a little chance, right? I took a chance on this computer, right? I just walked to the guy's door, handed him the money, he handed me the computer, and off I went. And I spent all night and a good part of this morning getting the desk sorted, moving things around, putting it back together. I am a master at getting computers right up and running with the cords, and I'm right. I've done it so many times that it's super easy for me. But I was very meticulous to get it right because I wanted to take a shot to see if I could get my speakers going. I connected all my cords and everything, so it only has to be attached to the computer. And I haven't done that yet, but I will do that as my project tomorrow. But if I can get my speakers, my Bose speakers going, I will be able to take that highlighter and highlight computer off for my goal list for this year. So I will have two things already scratched off my goal list. It's January 4th, you guys, right? I got my tent already and I will have gotten my computer. So I'm pretty happy about that. I love setting goals and moving towards them because otherwise, I don't know if I would be the couch and the remote control kind of person. I used to be that person, right? I used to work in a video store and oh my goodness, I would take stacks of movies home like this, all new releases, and I would get these they called them trailer movies and they'd give them out to the video stores so they could get management and their staff to review whether they thought it was going to be a good movie or something that they could promote or push out to their audience. And it was so much fun, but it made it so I truly was a couch potato. All I did was go to work and hang at home watching movies. And it was a good life, right? It was a good life. It was comfortable. It felt safe. And I had my friends around me too, because my friends were those people too, my friends, right? But if we had a plan, we had lots of adventures and stuff too. But yeah, nothing like a new release that nobody has seen and you've been like wanting to watch it. I've been wanting to go see that movie Anaconda with Jack Black. I think Jack Black is pretty funny. And not only is he funny, I think he's very versatile and very talented because for as long as he's been in the industry, he has always been popular. And any breaks he's taken in his career, he's done that for himself, for raising his family and stuff. So, and he does lots of fun, interesting things that he thinks is fun and interesting. He's right. Of course, everybody likes the almighty dollar, but you can truly tell that he loves doing what he does. Uh, that movie also has Paul Rudd in it, and Paul Rudd, he's absolutely adorable, and I think they're a pretty good match when it goes for movies. You always need a straight man, and Paul Rudd is a straight man, but he's also uh very funny, right? He is, right? Very, very good in his comedies. Yeah, very interesting. Very good character actors. Okay, let's see what's going on in the chatters tonight. Oh, we're using this mouse. Nice. We're using this mouse, not this mouse tonight, because I've got a new computer. Isn't that crazy? I can check two things off my list. Now it's not the one that I want. But, when I have another $1,000, I will get an amazing laptop, or maybe I'll get just an amazing monitor and just use a HDM cord and just hook it up to the monitor and just use my laptop. But the system that I have now, it works for me, so it makes me happy. We're just going to stop for a second. We're going to send some good cheer. Wow, didn't even pass by. Get to your destination, be a false alarm. They're going downtown. They turned around and went down a different drag. Okay, you guys. I am, right? I feel like it's my other show and I want to pull out a card tonight or something. But I've rearranged my desk so my little card tray is sitting on my desk now. I feel like I've got a lot more space, and I have been, right? I wish I could say I've really been enjoying having my computer, but that sound from the computer is not right. It's computer sound, it's not Dolby sound. So it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment for me to be off my stereo system sound that I had with those speakers. I really scored on those speakers. I think I got those speakers for like $10. And when they were first bought, they were probably $200, $300 speakers, right? And they were made specifically for computers, but they showed up at the little thrift store that I worked at, and the manager says, Cindy, you said you need speakers, here, take these ones, and he gave them to me for the same price as the crappy little computer speakers. So I was really really happy, and I've been in love with them, right? There's a few things that I've gotten, you guys know, a few things I pick up along the way, and I say this is absolutely amazing, right? That I was able to score such an amazing deal. Yeah. Some things I work out really well for me, and that's why, I was thinking that maybe my computer wouldn't work. I handed him off that $50. It was only $50 for this computer, right? Handed him off that money, and just trusted, right? At that point I says, I tried all day. I had that money in my hand and I tried all day to get a good deal. And then I just saw a really, really good deal, but it was on a Windows 10. And I says, well, can I manage with just a Windows 10? Right? And I says, why is it so important right at this moment that I have Windows 11? I says, okay, we'll get this desktop. It's a good money. It's like half of what I was willing to pay. And sure enough, there it goes. It won't take much. I could get my Windows 11 and a new one too, a proper one, without pirated Windows and stuff. And right, but that won't be for another couple of months down the road. But in the meantime, I'm back up and running, and that makes me happy, and it makes me feel like I'm working the things off of my list. We're in the new year, you guys. Happy New Year. Let me come in here, like I said, and check out some of these comments. You guys already way ahead of me. I'm just going to skip right down. Okay, the last one I noticed was Owen. So we'll go to Owen again. Uh, may see 50 degrees. Oh, okay. That's almost room temperature, isn't it? Because isn't 60 or 65 degrees room temperature in Fahrenheit, right? So that's almost room temperature. Oh, it's going to be mucky if you guys got snow on the ground. Owen, do you guys have snow on the ground? We've got snow on the ground. We're going to have some warm weather here. I did look at my weather channel for next week, and I saw that there was one day that it was going to be +2. If it gets to +2, then it's going to be slushy. It won't be enough for them to close the river because the river's open, because now people are ice skating to work downtown and stuff, and they do that on the river trails here. We live in a city that has two crossing rivers, the Red River and the Assiniboine River. So if it's only for a day or two, that warm weather won't make an impact on the ice because the ice is already like 2 feet thick. But okay, there we go. Next Monday, not this Monday, but next Monday. But they've changed it. It's only going to be +1, so it's not going to be enough to make any slush this week. No, it's pretty much staying. If it stays like -4, -5, the streets, because of the cars constantly on the main drags, might be able to clear the streets a little bit, but the sidewalks and the snow on the ground, that's it. That weather is not going to make it enough for it to melt here in Winnipeg. But I bet you, Owen, you are going to have a pretty slushy city, or you're going to have some rainstorms. That would be pretty cool. Uh Very similar to out weather, Owen. We are both on the East Coast. You know, Kathy, I was watching a documentary this afternoon. I love documentaries, by the way, if you haven't noticed, but um, there's a hill in Nova Scotia. And what was the city? Darn. But it was a little um, um, rock enclosure, very ancient, like 200 years old. And they've got this great big industrial building with a big parking lot. And then just in a little path off the road is this ancient building, and it's an archaeological site. Because I thought, oh my goodness, I would be there so fast with my metal detector looking for scores and stuff, right? But it's a protected area and you can't go metal detecting because they just haven't done the digs there yet, and they're planning to do an archaeological dig or something in the area. But it's been sitting there right in the city, right in an industrial parking lot, and it's sitting there. And oh, is this ever cool? I don't think it was a documentary. I think it was just somebody who does little adventures on YouTube, and I happened onto it on YouTube, right? And so I went and watched it, and I thought, oh, this is so cool. But if we were to find buildings like that, they said it might be an animal enclosure, like little pens and stuff where they kept farm animals. They didn't think it was actually uh, a place that people habitated. Is that the word? That lived at. And the walls in some points of the building were like 4 feet wide. So stacked rocks, like 4 feet wide. That rock stacking is something, from the pilgrims, right? they're the ones that like in North Carolina and some of those areas where they built those rock fences, right, for their properties for when they were clearing their land. And yeah, they used it to make pens and stuff for the animals, but that's what they thought that was some kind of animal pen. But they haven't dug it or anything, they haven't proven it or anything, they're just kind of throwing some ideas out there what they thought it was. Okay, where was I? Um, Eugene. Hello, Eugene. I hope you're having a amazing end to your week, right? Lots of places. Well, the calendar for one starts the new week on Sunday. For myself, I think it's Monday is the first day of the week, and especially, because I have my other live show that I do Monday to Friday, so that kind of sets me up that that's the first day, because on Saturday and Sunday I'm not posting to that live show, right? And actually on Saturdays I don't post at all. It's just for me. And I was on that adventure to find that computer yesterday. And I wanted to leave the house, be out of here by 10 o'clock in the morning. And then I didn't find that computer until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then once I had tracked it down, there was a matter of going and getting it. And then I had to do grocery shopping and yeah, so but I was all proud of myself because, it was just a little handful of cash that was coming in that I was responsible, right, to make sure. What did I want? I just didn't want to deal with my crappy computer. Maybe I can give it to my nephew and he can put some extra RAM in it because it is the same computer as this one. It's a different brand, right? It just needs more RAM. And that one's legitimate Windows, right? So I feel better. I feel more, right, legitimate in using my old computer if it ran good. And I know it's a good computer, it just didn't have any more RAM. I just downloaded so much crap to it. We're talking editing programs, and it takes a lot of space. And also when you're learning computers and stuff and it says download this and you hit that button to download and you end up with all kinds of stuff, right? So yeah, I would like to think I'm a little bit better with the computers. I still can't type worth nothing, right? When it comes to computers, but I'm getting pretty good at finding my way around. I feel comfortable going into my settings and blowing things up because I've literally done it a few times and found my way back online, right? Um, if not perfectly, at the very least workable, right? So I gotta say I'm pretty I'm pretty proud of that. Being 64 could have been a different story, right? Not being computer literate. And it's very important, right? And I'm trying to think for myself when the first time I worked with computers. I think probably um, when I was working at the bar, right? The POS systems, right? Punching in the orders and finding them on the screens. And yeah, that was most definitely was my first introduction to the digital age. And it just got more and more. And for me, uh, the computer was basically, I would have to say, for YouTube. right? I really enjoyed not being a participant in YouTube. Now I'm a participant, but when I first was on YouTube, I loved, right, all the different adventures that I could go on and have experiences vicariously through other people's experiences that I would never have dreamed of. To be able to choose what was on TV, right, on the computer, rather than looking at a TV guide and just getting a small selection. I was getting it all. And I think I was on, oh my goodness, I was probably on computers for maybe 10 years before I started my YouTube channel. I think even before I started my YouTube channel, I might have been on Instagram. I might have my first social media platform. I was never a Facebook person, right? Because when Facebook first started, it was for like friends and family, right? Um, for Instagram, it was a place for me to show my landscape photos. I'm very proud of my landscape photos. I try not to edit any of my video photos um, anymore. I did used to. I wasn't very good at it anyway, so you probably wouldn't even notice the difference. They probably even look worse. but but because we are in a digital age where everything is enhanced, that you can even go like a big thing now is the advertising for tourism, and they send off these beautiful videos of different places that you could book planes and tour packages on. And when they make these videos, the editing programs will take out all the tourists that are in the video. They'll take out street wires, the electrical wires that run across the street, and light poles. They'll take out cars. They'll take out garbage that's on the road and stuff. And people actually make their decisions to go on these trips because they're so in awe of what's being presented to them, and they don't realize it's all digitally manufactured, right? So I don't want to be that kind of creator. So when I put my photos up, it's just me finding a perfect spot in a perfect moment to hit that button. Of course, having the Google Pixel helps a lot, right? I love the photos on my Google Pixel. Yeah, that was a good decision for me switching. I used to do the galaxies. I don't know about you guys. I know all my friends and family and stuff, they all like the iPhone and the Apple products. For myself, I've always been a Google girl, but the Galaxy, the smartphone, is what I always had as a phone. As soon as the Galaxy started, I was on them. I think I got on the Pixels number 2. I remember having the Pixel 2. So that was pretty early. I never had the Pixel 1. So I think I came in. I probably daydreamed about it for a year that it first came out. Soon as I can afford it, or I probably put it on my goal list for the year. I want the Pixel, and I manifested it that way. I'm pretty certain that's what it was. But actually, that's what I wanted to talk about this year, about goals, about goal list, about also not just the goals, but the rewards, right? If you don't pick up a new addiction, it's really hard to break an old one, right? The only way to break an addiction is to add another addiction. That's why people exercise when they diet, because this way they can get addicted to the exercise rather than, right, have their brain go crazy because they don't have the food because they've given up. That's usually where addictions come from. We all, I think, have a level of addiction that we have to meet in order to keep the systems calm, right? But we each get our choice in those poisons in our life, and some of us that take that one that just wipes us right out so that we're not capable of doing anything. And others find addictions that are beneficial. I would think that cleaning addiction is pretty beneficial. You always have a clean, tidy house, right? But then again, my addiction of gambling, that was devastating because that's taking the milk off the cereal, that's taking the gas out of the car, that possibly taking the roof over your head. And not only that, turning you into a liar, right? Possibly a thief, right? You're juggling bills, you're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. But there are good addictions out there. Like I said, lots of people, they exercise. When they start dieting, they pick up. But if you just quit dieting, if you just quit eating the junk food and just go on that diet and you don't have something to replace that addiction, it's going to be really hard because you're going to deal with that withdrawal immediately, and it's going to be double, right? It's going to be double in that agitation. So I would probably, if I was dieting, exercise. I go for evening walks. It's in making those choices for ourselves, right? And and we can't just say, well, I'm going to give up this without realizing if we don't give this up, or if we give this up, what are we going to take on? What's going to be calming our system? Is it going to be exercise? Is it going to be evening walks? Is it going to be saving money? Is it going to be helping a neighbor or a family member? What are we going to do to apply our mind and our energy in so that we're no super focusing on what's trying to take us down, which is our diet. And that's what my sister, how she takes it. She goes full blast into these diets that she goes on. She does so good in that, but she doesn't pick up a second addiction, right? And there are lots of good addictions. Not saying cleaning addiction is a good addiction, but it's a lot better than, say, if you were on fentanyl or heroin or something, because that makes it so that you're non-functional, right? And it's important, no matter what, to always be moving forward. So you always have to keep that in mind when you're picking your poisons, picking your coping mechanisms that help to keep you balanced in that, right? I'm still into the pink ice donuts with the sprinkles. But you do the best that you can along the way, adapting and conquering. And, I have to recognize that maybe it's something that never will be resolved. I'm not keeping it off the plate. It is always on the table because I understand in my family, right? We beat ourselves up when we gain weight. We beat ourselves up. So we can't emotionally and mentally take being bigger people because we're not kind to ourselves. And I told that to my sister, right? You know, the only way to lose the weight is just to lose the weight. You don't have a choice because you will talk badly to yourself. You will treat yourself badly and you will put yourself in a negative state if, right, you don't keep that weight off. But we're only human, right? And our addictions are something that help to alleviate us, and so we can't beat ourselves up when we fall backwards. But you know what, if we keep trying, eventually maybe we will break. I've broken so many addictions in my life. Oh my goodness. Quitting smoking was a big one for me, right? I was a pack and a half a day. I couldn't afford to smoke. Grateful that my sister, right, paid for those patches. One of those things when I was telling you that you Miracle on 34th Street, how she impacts people's lives by her putting those nicotine patches in my stocking that year. I was able to quit smoking. I have not had a cigarette. Oh my goodness. It's got to be 20 years now, more than 20 years that I haven't had a cigarette. Not one cigarette, right? And that's something to be proud of. Every time that you're able to overcome something that wants to take you down, that's something to congratulate yourself with, and something you should be, because just like my sister bad talks herself when she gains a few pounds, right? And she makes herself miserable, and she just gets more miserable until she just says, forget this. And the next thing you know, it's just not 1 or 2 pounds, it's like 20 pounds, right? And then she really hates on herself. And then she gets back on, and it's just a roller coaster up and down. I know it because I did that myself. And I know it's true because I've heard the way my sister talks about herself when she doesn't feel good about herself because she's gained a few pounds, or in her mind, she thinks she's gained a few pounds. When she doesn't lose weight, it's just as bad as if she gains weight, right? The plan is always to lose weight. So if she's maintaining, she's not happy either. But that's our upbringing, right? And it's in our ability to adapt and conquer and find ways. We found what went wrong, didn't we? Right? We found what we have to do. Now we have to figure out how do we do that, right? Yeah. It's pretty interesting. But that's what it is with addictions. If you pick up give up one coping mechanism, just keep in mind that you have to bring on board another one. And you have to remember, too, that not all New Year's resolutions succeed. And if you go back to the old resolution, will you be able to give up the new addiction that you brought on to make the old one not so missed, right? So you want to make sure that you're just not adding to that plate too. And I keep that in mind, right? That I'm checking things off now. I'm not adding to the plate anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm doing it in baby steps. So this idea for me with food this year, and it feels that it's working really, really well. I have not messed up once. Well, I messed up once by 10 minutes because I went to do my final clean of my kitchen before the end of the night, and I washed my dishes and cleaned my counters, and there were a couple of cookies sitting in the pan, but I wanted to wash the pan, but I didn't want to put the cookies in a sandwich bag, right, for the next day. So instead, I'm cleaning up my kitchen and I'm eating these two cookies. I look up at the clock just as I'm taking the last bite into the second cookie, realizing it was 10 after 8. So I wasn't even supposed to put those cookies in my mouth to start with, but I did it. And I ended up spitting out what was in my mouth and that one little bite of cookie that I had left. But other than that, you guys, I've been doing this 8 o'clock, no food after 8 p.m. I think this is my third week, and it didn't feel like a battle. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I have to remind myself, eat, Cindy, because if you go an hour more, you're not going to get your dinner tonight. So it's making me aware of these things, but at the same time, I'm not feeling bad about it, right? Because I'm just following that one rule: no eating after 8 p.m. Oh, I have three things that I'm allowed to eat after 8 p.m. I'm allowed to eat coleslaw, right? Because the cabbage and the fiber and the coleslaw is really good for me. uh, beets because they're very antioxidant, and beets are really, really, really good for you. Really good. People don't understand how good beets are for you. So I allow myself a jar. I don't have a jar in my fridge. I ate the last one, but it's on my grocery list, right? So get a jar of pickled beets and leave it in the fridge, and have that with my dinner. And then pickles. I allow myself pickles. And the great thing about pickles is you have that pickle juice, right? Especially if you have fermented pickles. And you put that pickle juice in. I never throw the pickle juice away. I use it in my coleslaw dressing. So I have my mayo or my cucumber dressing in my coleslaw with a quarter cup of pickle juice and my paprika, salt and pepper, and give it a little stir. If I have some green onions, I'll chop up some green onions into it, or I might dice up some pineapple and throw some pineapple in there. But it's trying to keep just these kind of things in the fridge all the time, so that even if I'm not rich and able to go off and buy fancy vegetables and fancy meats and stuff, that I'm still finding ways creatively to get those nutrients and not just depend on my vitamins to make sure that I'm eating well in my income bracket. Like, there should be access. I go into this grocery store by my house, and there's just this one great big huge section, and it's where they keep all the whole foods and the organic vitamins, the foo-foo stuff for the people who have lots and lots of money. It's a huge section. And sometimes I just walk up and down those shelves just to see what people are buying, because the price tags are crazy, right? 40, 50, $100 for these creams and ointments and vitamins and nail, and this little fridge where you can buy little uh, um, organic creams and stuff, with the good bacterias and stuff. Probiotics, that's what I was going to say, probiotics. And I think, oh my goodness, this section never has anybody in it except every once in a while a shoplifter, but they know not to go in there because they'll get followed immediately if they go into that section. And that section is usually pretty empty. But people are going there because there's stuff off those shelves, really expensive things. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, segregated in our own grocery store. Here in Canada, there's something pretty amazing that's been going on for the past couple of years, is the cultural grocery aisles. Give me 1 second. It's fairly new to grocery stores, only for the past couple of days, but what a money grab. Now they have freezer sections full of Chinese food and Asian products and Indian products and vegetarian frozen breads and foods and plant burgers, and right, and it's really neat to go down the cultural aisle and you see Ukrainian food and Russian food and Filipino food and German food, and just from absolutely everywheres. But see that those shelves are being totally wiped out. I can imagine that pretty soon they're just not going to have little freezer sections in the one aisle. They're going to need a couple of aisles, because it's a great indicator of a market that hasn't been properly served in, well, forever, right? Because we are a growing country and we have been very ethnic since the very beginning. And yet those favorite foods and favorite groceries are just making it to the shelves now in the 2020s, right? It's interesting. I don't know if you've seen those. Do they have those aisles in the States, you guys? Those from different cultures. Yeah, it's pretty neat. I really appreciate that. It's not like everybody likes having burger and fries, right? It's kind of nice to go in to a grocery store and know that you'll be able to pick up some of those things that you've grown up with, and no matter what country you have lived in, right? That I like to see that people are able to pick up their groceries. They have grocery stores that are specifically for different cultures. We have a African grocery store. Oh, we got a couple of them, and we've got lots of Chinese grocers, and we got lots of Ukrainian butchers. We have oh my goodness, like so many beautiful aspects that that can cross in what we like, because even me, I'm walked down those aisles and I'm looking at pot stickers and little sushi. I would never eat the sushi packages, but dim sum and stuff like this. And I'm going, oh, I could try that. Little curry takeout containers, and I love curry, right? I think I'm going to make some curry this week. Yes, I think I am. Maybe some curried chicken and rice sounds good. Maybe I'll make some butter chicken. Butter chicken and rice. I'm trying to make nice meals for myself, right? So I can actually um, see where my flavors or my taste buds want to take me. I find a lot of things in my life in the past few years have really blossomed into new, I don't know, new appreciations, right? You know, even in my crystals, to tell you the truth, crystals came into my life when I first woke up to some of these ideas. I appreciate a pretty rock, but the rock hunting, the buying them when I came across them, uh, digging, digging for them, right? Going to different places, making one of my September trips, totally surrounding my rock hounding passion. But that passion's only been around for oh my goodness, a half a dozen years or so. I love it, and it's something really really new to me. But I gotta understand that these are interests that belong to me, and right, they're common interests, those other parts of me, right? It's the same thing with my dragons, right? And if you look behind me, I've got dragons. I counted them one time just in my living room. I think I have like 25 dragons. You wouldn't know them by the way I arranged them and stuff. But yeah, I have a lot of dragons. The dragons are new too. And I think the dragons have basically only been in my life maybe five years or so also. But for me, I just love the dragons, right? And again, it's that common passion that I have with those other parts of me. And I've got to read into that too. You know, a lot of what's going on in the world right now is the idea that there are different groups coming back that are working behind the scenes to help the world move forward a little bit in a direction that we're supposed to be moving, right? Sometimes when you get off track, we need those course corrections. And that's a lot of what's been going on in my life, guaranteed in my experience. I it's it's so obvious, and it's really hard sometimes to leave myself open to the possibilities that I'm supposed to be going in that direction when I'm actually going in that direction, right? And so to be able to be willing and open to change my ideas and to allow new passions to come into my life, right? And look at me. I got Buddhas too. The Buddhas are new. There was a point I had over 50 Buddhas. I think at this moment I counted them because I got a Buddha on my wall here. I got a Buddha down there, got a Buddha there, got a Buddha up there. I got some Buddhas. I might have 8 Buddhas left, but there was a time I had over 50 Buddhas. I had a lot. I had a lot of Buddhas, but the Buddhas were new, right? The Buddhas were new. Trees, I have always trees were my safe place, Mother Nature, right? I have always loved trees, especially when I first started on social media. I started my Instagram. And if you go to some of those very first photos that I put up on my Instagram, they were of trees, just singular trees. I'd come across an interesting tree and I would take a photo of it. And so trees have always been in my life. I've always felt that resonance with the trees, right? And I was actually, where was I talking about it? It might have been talking about it on my other live show, but I was saying, people don't understand that, trees are so ancient. Like there are not too many things in this world, right, that are more ancient than nature. And even though sometimes we don't hear our other selves, we don't feel or experience our other selves, that doesn't mean that, right, those other parts of us are not there. They're just not recognized. And sometimes when you're not recognized, or sometimes when we're so hard on ourselves and depressed and angry and resentful, right, we only leave ourselves open to bad stuff, negative stuff, right? We can't find the joy in life anymore. But if we can leave ourselves open, right, that we can find just the magnificence in the adventures in our lives, and to be able to be open and feel those other parts of ourselves, that even though we've lost the ability to speak to them, to communicate to them, that nature, right, nature has never lost that ability to communicate with us, right? So even though Cindy, right, I sit there, I yap to the tree. Believe me, I'm out in the forest and I'm talking to the trees, right? I'm laying on my hands onto the trunks of the trees, and I'm wishing well and sending all kinds of good cheer and everything. But I don't feel that conversation in reciprocation. But that doesn't mean that that conversation is not being had, that it's not taking place with those other parts of me that are maybe just as ancient as the trees are. And this is the way that I look at it. And this is why it's so important to get close to Mother Nature, because sometimes we can't help ourselves, but maybe, out in Mother Nature, and nature is what is that, impartial, would maybe, right, you put a hand on a tree and send it some good cheer, that maybe in that reciprocal way it would have a conversation, right, because it understands, and it, right, it knows that talk. And it's important that we get close to nature, because, right, sometimes We don't get things, right? But it doesn't mean they're not understood, if that makes any sense. Okay, let's come down in the comments a little bit more. Um, Andrew says a Charlie horse feels awful. A good way to deal with one is to raise your toes as high as you can to stretch the calf muscle. Oh my goodness, I never heard of that one before, Andrew. I'm going to try that the next one I have. Usually, I feel the tension of the Charlie horse before the Charlie horse actually happens. So I have an opportunity to stand up. If I stand up, then what I do is I go find a table. I have a little cupboard here, and I put both hands on the cupboard, and then I march in spot, right? Because if I can loosen up the muscles, then the Charlie horse will recede. And sometimes I can even stop the Charlie horse from even happening. But that's a good tip. I'm going to try that one out, Andrew. Thank you. Um, I don't know what's going on upstairs. Um, Owen says, I only drink coffee in the morning. After that, I drink mostly water. I'm not a water fan. I'm not a big water fan, you guys. I never have been. Maybe as a kid, I enjoyed water. I'm from British Columbia. Water has no flavor, but I moved to Manitoba. The water is really hard here on the prairies. There's a lot of minerals, right, in the water, but also they use a lot of chlorine in the water, and it's really noticeable when you drink it. And I'm not a big drinking out of plastic bottles kind of girl either. So yeah, water is always flavored for me for the most part. I do go on water kicks, right? But it will be bottled water. And like I said, I'm not a big bottled water type girl, but sometimes I will do drink crystals, and I will do flavor the water just a little bit that way, and able to enjoy it and get more into me like I am right now, right? It's pretty watered down, but I managed to get the water into me. Okay, you guys, let's come down here. Um, yeah. Oh, well, it's comforting to know that I'm not the only one who gets Charlie horses. In my family, I'm the only one who gets Charlie horses. And it's always been entertainment for everybody else when I've had them in front of people. But usually they happen in the middle of the night for me after, my whole body has started to relax a little bit, right? And of course, it's, when I was working and running around and not taking in enough fluids. Hello, William. Okay, we're coming down here. Uh, Cindy, are you familiar with the photos of Ansel Adams? Yes, I am. I really love. Right, these kind of have an Ansel Adams kind of feel to them. They're not photographs, but the idea was that Bearstadt, it was the artist who did these ones, and Ansel Adams actually um, were doing the same thing around the same time. They were adventurers. Actually, Bearstadt actually hung out with Lewis and Clark, right? So these big landscapes, right? Ansel Adams would have photographed too, because he loved these big, majestic landscapes. And actually, I think because Bearstadt actually lost his standing as one of the great master artists, painters, only because he was an entrepreneur. And usually, artists are like starving artists and don't make money. And so people were really bitter, and they discredited his work. They said it was too majestical. It wasn't, it wasn't true, that this wasn't realistic art, right? And realist landscapes. But Ansel Adam, because he photographed some of these exact same spots, it became the evidence, because he didn't actually get it. I think it was like in 2010, somewheres around then. He didn't lose it for long. I think he only lost it for like 20 years or something, but he had passed away, right, by that time. And but now he's reinstated as the great one of the great masters when it comes to landscapes. But yeah, Ansel Adams actually was part of the evidence, because he actually photographed some of the same spots as what Bierstadt was using as his canvases in his artwork. Yeah, he traveled with Lewis and Clark. That must have been the most incredible experience. I'd be up and running for one of those kind of experiences for sure. I'll have my moment, 100%. I want a new computer. I like AI, and there are a lot of things that you can do. You're 100%. You need a lot of money to get what I want, to make the things I need. Oh, I see. Well, you got to start somewheres, right? You never know, especially with Windows 10 right now, not being able to get updates and things, that they now selling the Windows 11. So people be getting rid of their Windows 10. You'll start seeing those computers uh, come into the come into the thrift stores and stuff. And if you don't understand specs or anything, just message me and I'll help you out, because if you can get a good Windows 10, right, with the specs that you need, you could do very well for yourself. I'm really pleased with my computer. It's not a new one, but it's got the specs that I need. And if I could just figure out how to hook up my speakers, right, I would be a happy camper. 100%. I miss my Bose speakers, and it hasn't even been 24 hours yet. But I don't miss my computer crashing. It's been really nice just be able to, right, just surf the way that I want to surf. And like I said, that's what this is for my streaming, for taking in my lessons, right? For just being able to be comfortable where I am. Whereas my laptop, well, that'll do all the heavy work. And at this moment, right, that heavy work is not in specific need in this moment, because, it is not the season, right? And there'll be a moment for that, but right, it's just enjoying and appreciating where you are in the moment. Okay, you guys, that's going to be it for tonight. That's pretty neat, because I look up and I go, well, maybe. And I looked, it was 9:03, and holy cow. It's like when I get up in the morning and I wake up at 3 minutes to 7, lay there, and the alarm goes off. I always beat the alarm. It's like my whole system is like a little alarm clock that I could just look up and go, oh my goodness, it's time. Oh my goodness, I hit that one on the button. Okay, you guys. Anything else that I needed to express in this moment? I have just been, right, trying to check things off of that goal list, trying to make a little bit of movement, trying to stay on top of the pile so that I don't put myself in that frenzy of, right, chasing my own tail. I'm managing okay in the moment, so that's got to count for something. Everybody, have a great night. We'll see you next Sunday. And I'll be here Monday to Friday, 9 p.m. if you guys want to come and hang out with me. If not, well, like I said, see you next Sunday. Have a great night, everybody, and have a great week.